Gather around, friends new and old, and welcome to the POWWOW podcast. I am one of your hosts, Philip.
And I am the other host, David.
David, what a week it has been. What are the highlights for you of this previous week? Anything of note? Any major plans that have finally fell into motion? Any massive dumps that you've taken that you need noting or something? I don't know.
You know, I wish I thought about this before. Whenever someone asks me, oh, what did you do yesterday? I immediately forget. It's part of my dysfunctional brain. But what did I do this week? Well, I'm going on vacation soon, so I guess I've been planning for that. And what else? What about you, Phil? What have you been doing?
Nothing too much. Probably the two highlights of my week, one of which the audience has already heard, because even though I worked on it during this previous week, it actually played in our most previous episode. So it's going to just, again, based off the timing of how it all works, it's going to seem like weird for me to acknowledge that it was this past week. But I created a new fun little intro for Bite Me. That happened last week, and that was fun to introduce, and that I really was a highlight for me personally. And of course, last night I played some poker. And I was
nice.
Yes, the fun thing about poker always is now at the point where I'm an active adult. I'm no longer just the young kid at the table. I'm now still young, but not like the youngin'. So I'm going around and I'm like the only person now at the table with this group of guys that I play poker with for the better part of a decade. And I'm the only person now at that table with the last person finally becoming a daddy. I'm the last person to not be a father at that table. And I take that as a personal badge of honor.
Wow. Yeah. I don't understand, but good for you. Good for you. I will say one thing happened this week, and I know I'm going to be once again the only person who gives a damn. But South Africa beat New Zealand in rugby, and South Africa's been performing terribly over the past couple weeks, but they beat New Zealand, and I'm feeling real good about that. It was a fantastic game. Good pick me up. Phil, my food is cold. I would like very much to speak to the chef, please. All right, today we have a wonderful, fun opportunity to speak to my friend who is a professional chef. His name is Marcus Ekman, and we're delighted to have him on the podcast. Finally, I messaged him. I think, Marcus, I messaged you. When was it? The beginning of the summer, sometime in May or June. And I said, hey, are you free on Sunday to come on as a guest on my podcast? And he said, please send me a message in September, because I'm going to be being the head chef of 2 restaurants all summer. 2 restaurants. You did not hear me wrong. 2 restaurants. Anyway, so delighted to welcome on Marcus to the POWWOW podcast. Say hello, Marcus.
Thank you. Hello. It's been a pretty intense summer, but I'm really glad that I got this opportunity to come on.
No, we're really glad, Marcus, and very honored to have you on here. Of course, being a professional chef as you are, I'm sure that you have multiple better things to do than to come onto a camp-themed podcast. But that being what it is, we appreciate your time, and I think let's get right to things here. David, if you don't mind, I'll go first. Marcus, what is the first meal you remember creating? Do you have like a signature dish maybe that you create time and time again? So like dual fold. What's the first dish that you ever remember creating? And then currently, do you have a signature dish?
I think one of my earliest memories of like cooking a proper dish, not just like boiling pasta and making a simple sauce, was when I made Gordon Ramsay's beef Wellington for my family. I think that's the standout dish. And then I think one of my signature dishes, or something that I cook very often, is risotto. It's very versatile. You can mix it up and do a lot of different things. Go vegetarian, go fish, go meat.
And that's why you now have the bicep of a Hercules, because it requires so much damn stirring.
Yep, something like that.
Ironically, Marcus, you've been with us since the beginning of this episode, which actually is something of a rarity, if not novel. But ironically, you heard me talk about that. I played poker last night, and in conversation, we talked about the podcast and everything. And weirdly enough, one of the topics that came up was, "Hey, I'm having a chef on tomorrow. What would you guys want to? What would you ask him?" And one thing they said was, "Why can't anybody in the United States make a damn good risotto?" So it's funny that you should you yourself bring up risotto.
There's more technique to it than I think a lot of people would realize.
Marcus, was there a meal that you remember having prepared for you by, say, a restaurant or a family member that moved you to pursue cooking as a career?
I don't know if I can pinpoint a specific memory, but when I was young, my grandmother on my father's side particularly did a lot of cooking, and I have one very specific memory of me and my cousin getting thrown out of the kitchen because she was going to make donuts, and that involves frying at high temperatures. And we were like, what, 4 or 5 years old,
spattering oil, hot oil. Yeah,
exactly.
Not conducive for children.
No, but I think it was one of those early moments of just seeing my grandmother cook food, and something there just moved me into wanting to pursue a career with food.
Marcus, in culinary school, was there something you had to learn that you found incredibly frustrating or had a long journey to overcome? A la, I think, for speaking for myself and the general public, dicing, while it looks incredibly impressive, it just wows my mind. I don't care what you're chopping. I don't care what you're dicing. It always looks impressive. It could be a freaking tomato. It could be an onion. It could be garlic. Like, that to me always blows my mind. And anytime I would even think about doing it, it just scares the poop out of me, and I'll just stay with my ugly cuts as they were.
Yeah, I think it's kind of what you're saying, getting into the perfection of cooking, the visual perfection. It's a very daunting task, and I can still not call myself an expert in it anyway. But yeah, I think that's, it's learning the techniques. And when I studied or went to culinary school, we focused a lot more of the technical and theoretical aspects of culinary arts, which in turn have helped me become a better chef in the practicality of it.
Marcus, I know I've known you for a long time, and I know you wanted to become a chef even at a very young age, even when I first met you, and we were, like 12, 13 years old. But if it hadn't been cooking, what would it have been? What would you be if it weren't a chef? Food critic doesn't count. Okay, that's cheating.
I would probably say more on the course of computer programming or computer sciences.
Wow. That's very dry, very, very dry compared to the culinary arts.
Yeah, but there's something, I don't know, there's something about logic questions and coding. And I'm actually taking a small course on Java coding currently. There's something about it that intrigues me, and it's challenging and it's daunting, and I understand less than what I need to understand, but there's something that gives me energy to keep going, facing the challenges head on.
I think that is a natural marriage of things, though, especially in food, because obviously there's the initial thing of like, oh, I want it to taste good. But just as much as you said, visually, there is a lot that has to go logistically into cooking for mass audiences, where it's just like, I need to make 20 of this and then 40 of that. So it makes sense that you would like, or your brain would even be drawn to something logistically that also kind of fits into slots, as it were. My last question here before we move on, is there anyone you still get nervous cooking for, whether it be like family, prospective romantic interests, maybe celebrities?
I can't say that I've cooked for a celebrity, but I mean, I still kind of get nervous cooking for my family because, well, you want to show off that the energy and the hours that you've invested in a 3-year degree, 4-year actually, degree in culinary arts school, and working as a head chef, that, you know, whatever the food that you're going to cook is going to be amazing to your parents and your brother and sister. Yeah, that still makes me nervous. I guess it's the perfectionist inside.
I'm curious,
Scares me.
what would you make them? Like, what was like among the first dishes that you would say that you cooked for them after culinary school? Because it couldn't have just been an omelet. You can't be like, hey, it's an all-you-can-eat omelet bar, folks. Enjoy, right? It has to be something that's a little bit next level, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I did. It was actually while I was still in culinary school, but for New Year's Eve dinner, I made I think we landed in 12-course meal for
12 freaking
my
courses?
family. Yeah.
Wow.
It took me
Wow.
2 days of prep work because I was doing it by myself, and it was quite elaborate.
Wow. Were you happy? Sorry, I'm loving this. Were you happy with the end result? Were they? Was there anything inedible, or was it all good?
They were very happy. I was happy with parts of it. And then there were parts
always
of
your
some of the
harshest
courses.
critic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some of the courses that I thought could have used a little bit more work.
Marcus, we know, but of course the people don't know. So let's give you a little bit of tout here. Of course, you have your bachelor's and master's, freaking master's in culinary arts and meal science. And you've even worked your way in restaurants all the way up to even Michelin starred level restaurants. So you're very accomplished while we move along towards actually what you do and everything else. And you're currently the head chef of a restaurant on the west coast of Sweden. How did you manage to get to that position? And what does a normal work day for you in that job entail? Because I'm sure everybody obviously understands the cooking part, but there's far more that goes into it than just that.
For sure. It's quite a funny story. One of my friends is the restaurant manager, and we met at culinary school. He was a year above me, doing a sommelier, so a wine, wine taster server. And
is that a bachelor's degree? Can you get a bachelor's degree in wine tasting? Oh my goodness. What am I doing? What am I doing?
Yeah, that's on a different topic. Quite an intense course as well.
Wow.
But yeah, he contacted me a year ago after I'd finished working a season also at a restaurant on the Swedish west coast, just a bit north from where I am now. He contacted me in September and said, "Hey, Marcus, what are you doing next summer?" And I told him, I just finished working a summer job, and we worked a lot of hours in a very short time. I'm not going to decide anything at the moment. And then I didn't really think about it for half a year. Then he called me again, and we spoke a little bit more, and I became more and more intrigued. And I said that I could come down as a sous chef, so working under the head chef.
Right.
For the summer. And the restaurant is actually, we divide ourselves and become like two restaurants in one building, upper floor with its own kitchen and a lower floor with a separate kitchen, different menus and everything.
Wow.
And so I was supposed to be the sous chef for the upper floor and had created a menu with him that we were going to present to the owners. And that's kind of how I started. And then towards middle of May, we started noticing that the head chef kind of didn't really want to be there. He had taken the job because he knew the owners from way, way back. And he said that he would help them out, get everything started for the summer season.
And then you overthrew him. Mutiny. Mutiny in the kitchen.
You know what was boiling? Mutiny.
Not so dramatic.
Yeah.
That's not so dramatic. It was more that everyone kind of realized what we wanted. And for me, that was stepping up and taking a more of a commanding and leading role. And then, so I ended up becoming the head chef for both of the kitchens. and we have been struggling due to the pandemic, particularly in finding experienced cooks. But we've managed,
Wow.
and we have made a fantastic season. I think everyone has worked their butts off. I'm currently 2 months ahead on my hours, so I have about 300
A
hours
big
of
vacation.
overtime.
Big vacation coming up then.
Not really, but we have closed down the hours that were open now on the fall and winter season.
Wow.
So I only work 3 days.
300 hours. Marcus, if there was something that you would want to change about the food industry, what would that be? Perhaps the hours.
I think one of the changes it's on the way, it's starting to get there, but it's raising the sustainability in the restaurant industry, not just for the environment, but for the people who work in the industry. You have to be able to have a healthy work-life balance. And I am an expert in not balancing my work life with my regular life. But I think that's what's needed for the industry. So yeah, that's what I would like.
Yeah, Marcus, as a layman to the food industry, my only experience and knowledge about the industry itself comes from the Food Network and Ratatouille. So, would you say the existence of these food forces serve to aid and inspire people to cook and become better chefs on their own, or do you find them to be examples of what is wrong with entertainment paired with food and are atrocities to the art of cooking, or maybe somewhere in the middle?
Somewhere in the middle. I think there are some things about like movies that try to glorify the restaurant industry, but then there are other movies. I think Burnt, for example, shows with Bradley Cooper is a fantastic movie portraying that kind of upper level of dedication to finding perfection in the food industry and the negative aspects of that. I won't spoil the plot, but there is some elements of past life of drug abuse and alcoholism and things like that, which I think are unfortunately part or closely attached to the industry because it is a quite intense job.
Marcus, what is the biggest kitchen disaster that you've ever witnessed or been a part of?
God, that's a really good question. I've been quite fortunate in that I haven't been a part of any major disasters. Something that I've seen at multiple restaurants is when there's a shortage of staff and the restaurant becomes overbooked or overfull, and no one is able to keep up. The orders are just flying into the kitchen, and you feel like you are standing in a swamp and just treading mud. But I haven't been part of any like dangerous disasters that have involved a staff, slicing an artery or having to go to the emergency hospital.
Have you ever seen another chef do a sneezer into a dish from a rude customer or something? Or a waiter as it's going out the kitchen? No?
No.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. It's good to
Yes.
hear.
I think that's one of it's quite a rare thing.
Okay.
I've never seen that happen.
We all breathe a sigh of relief. And Phil, shall we move on to the future?
Absolutely. Marcus, who would you say is someone in your profession that you have the utmost respect for? And would you rather cook with them or for them? Would you rather cook Gordon Ramsay's beef Wellington with him or for him? I don't know. Maybe you don't respect him.
I definitely respect him. There are a lot of master chefs that I would love to cook with. So I think my answer is going to be cook with for any chef of renown. I think that's how you evolve and become a better chef yourself.
Marcus, you've certainly done a lot of traveling already, But is there a particular place that you are most excited about going to in order to try the food, or even take a gander at cooking the food from that place? Is there a region of the world that you want to go to?
Japan, without a doubt and hesitation. Japan. It's on my bucket list, and I'm just dying to be able to get the opportunity to dive into the history and the traditions of the Japanese kitchen. I think it's certainly a kitchen that has influenced a lot of modern new Nordic restaurants.
Did you watch the show Our Man in Japan on Prime?
I have
It's
not.
with James May, who was from Top Gear way back when. He's a sort of generally an automotive journalist, but he does all sorts of stuff. And he has done 2 Amazon Prime shows recently. One of them was a 6-episode tour of Japan from north to south. And since watching that, I watched it months ago. Since watching that, I've just been all about Japanese. Like, I just always craving Japanese food. And then he did another show, which was actually a cooking show, which was kind of a gag because he isn't really a chef or know much about cooking at all. So it was more of a joke than anything. But the Japan one really, really made me want to go to Japan and try the food, try all the food.
Is that the clip where, or part of the show, he's on a train and he's served, I think it's lunch, and
Yes.
he eats it. He eats a bite.
He eats
and,
it. Yeah.
Then there's another media that's supposed to come in and do a shoot of that food.
Yeah,
I've
they
seen
were
that clip.
They're supposed to take pictures and pretend that he was going to eat it, and then there was another group of journalists who were going to take the same dish, which was like worth hundreds of dollars or something, that one dish, and he had like taken a big old bite out of it. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. It seemed like a really good show, so I think I'm going to have to add it to my watch list.
Definitely.
Marcus, what is the ultimate goal? Is it your own TV show? Open your own restaurant? Maybe food truck around Europe? Or perhaps break scientific food borders with more studies that you've been conducting on your own?
I don't know if I have one end goal. I have a lot of goals that I would love to accomplish. One of them is, of course, owning my own restaurant, really get to cook the food that I want to cook. But there's also an aspect or an element of me that wants to dive deeper into the sensory sciences. That's kind of like the theoretical knowledge that drives a lot of food development, which I think is super exciting. Currently, I'm doing both, or aiming for both, and then we'll just have to see where the journey ends.
Marcus, last couple questions here before we move on with our lives. First of all, are you generally more delighted or frustrated when people insist that you do the cooking when you go to gatherings or something like that?
It definitely depends on the crowd I'm with. I went to a New Year's Eve party hosted by some friends, and we were 2 chefs who were both really good friends, and we hadn't planned on helping out at all, but we were just kind of drawn to the kitchen by our own, I don't know, force of nature or force of the chef, and we ended up helping cooking and kind of let the hosts do the hosting. And we hosted some of their other guests in the kitchen and chatted and things like that. But you know, I really love to eat other people's food and to experience their cooking. So I don't like to be forced to cook when I'm not at work, but I do kind of get drawn into it or drawn towards the kitchen if there is a dinner setting or food setting that's part of the feast.
Well, the folly of your logic there, Marcus, is you would never want my cooking. My cooking is add and paste here. It's ramen meets frozen veggies maybe a scooch more salt. So if it was with us, I mean, you can have my cooking. My cooking is non-impressive, but it does. That's where your logic of I love tasting other people's cooking. That's where it falls short. Is when you meet an illiterate in the form of a food making person such as myself. That's where your your whole conundrum just whittles down like a house of cards.
If I can just add on to what you're saying, I
Sure.
think then it becomes a matter of intention. What's the intention between you or from you serving me food? If you're trying to give it your all,
Trust me, Marcus, you
that's
don't want to
something that you
know
can
what Phil's
experience.
intentions are. You don't want to know.
I guess
Anyway.
what I'm trying to say is, as a chef, I will eat pretty much anything that is served, and I will be happy.
Marcus, we're very happy to have a professional on here to settle this debate. This is our final question before we move on with the podcast. Where does one find the best pizza? Is it Italy, New York, Chicago? And then finally, does pineapple belong on pizza?
I haven't been around in the US or traveled enough to try all the different types of pizzas. So I think I'm going to have to lean towards the Europeans and say that it's difficult to beat the Italians. Pineapple on a pizza. I am torn in the middle.
Gosh.
Because on the one hand, I don't know if it should belong on a pizza, but on the other hand, for me, it's childhood memories.
The adventurous side of him is like, I mean, it's food. Food should, if it has a purpose, it should. But oh man, it feels so wrong.
I think it depends on where you're getting your pizza.
I can accept that answer. Yes.
Here it comes. Would you? Of course, the mini segment where we ask the question, would you? David, if you don't mind, I'll start us out. David, would you allow somebody to defecate on you for $1,000?
You know, it might depend on the person, but I would probably do it. I can shower. I mean, $1,000. Maybe once I'm making lots of money, absolutely not. But at this point, yeah, probably I'd take it.
If I may, this question came up. I wasn't even going to pick this question, but then last night it came up at the poker table once more. This is the last time, I swear to God, this is the last time I bring it up the poker table. It came up last night, and I said to this guy, Will, I said the exact same question. Would you allow somebody? And he said, you asking me? And I said, No, I'm not asking you, but I'm asking if you would. And after that, it was just all that the poker table could talk about for like the rest of the night. It naturally took over the entire tenor of the rest of the conversations and night. So, intriguing question. I'm bowing to you now, David. Your turn.
Hold on. Would you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Just wanted to know.
I wouldn't enjoy it. I don't want it to sound like I'm saying I would enjoy it. But again,
no, me neither.
But the same idea, same concept.
All right, let's move on. Would you rather spend a week at the North Pole alone or a year on a tropical island alone? So just to be clear, you're not going to starve. You've got all the food you need. But there you go.
Honestly, I think I would choose the year on the island purely for survival purposes, because a week in the North Pole, I actually am quite worried that I would freeze to death and just inadequately care for myself. Whereas at least the worst I'm looking at is maybe some sort of sun crazed, some sort of thing. Maybe I get eaten by something, but at least I won't die due to the elements. If you're saying that all my resources already provided for me, so I probably go a year,
right.
Even though I would lament the fact that I'd lose a year of my life to being on a stupid island.
You might go crazy as well, though.
True.
I'd probably do the same. So it's time for once more. And for the first time ever, we're actually going to keep bring our guest back on for once more, simply because of what it is. And I prepared the once more this week for Philip and Marcus to be our judges, let's say.
Okay.
So there's a movement online called We Want Plates, or We Want More Plates, or something on Reddit. Essentially, people are fed up with their food being served on ridiculous things that are not plates. So I'm going to list off some examples, and then you guys, Phil and Marcus, are going to give me a yay or give me a nay. All right? Is it cool, edgy, vibin' thing, a fun way to present food, or is it just too damn much? So the first one is a codfish served on a roof tile. Marcus, yay or nay?
If I'm only allowed to respond in one word, then nay.
You can give a reason.
Unless I know if the tile serves a purpose. Like, has the fish been cooked on the tile? Is that why they're serving it on the tile?
I doubt it. I doubt it.
I don't understand it, but maybe I would have to see it.
Okay, so nay. Phil, what do you say?
I'm going to have to assume that it's a sanitized, clean piece of roofing tile. But if that is the case, I'm yay. Yay, the roof is on fire. Let's cook that codfish. I love it.
All right. So Phil says yay, Marcus says nay. All right, how about this? Mashed strawberries in champagne foam served in a cut in half of a glass bottle of champagne. Philip, let's go to you first this time. Yay or nay?
Again, I'm assuming it's safe, but let's say that there's no jagged edges or that they just go out and do a bar fight and then pick up the remnants of the champagne bottle. If it's safe and cauterized and everything else, then yes, I would say, yay, let's cut out the middleman. Let's just get directly to the friggin' bottle.
Marcus, what do you think?
Well, again, working on the same presumption as Philip, I actually see more of a purpose, because you said the food actually had champagne in it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, then it makes kind of sense that you would serve the dish out of a champagne bottle.
Fair enough. Here we go. Pasta in a jar. Marcus.
I mean, takeaway? Sure. Otherwise, I mean, at a restaurant, it just feels like a annoying way to eat the pasta.
Absolutely. Phil, what do you think?
Yeah, not to add the judge's bias here, but no, absolutely not. Again, if it's takeaway, it feels as if like it's work from home. Like whenever I go to the office,
It's not. I don't think it's takeaway because it's a glass jar. I don't think they're just giving those out. So I presume it's brought to the table. I'm looking at a picture right now. It's not takeaway.
Yeah, but you're right. So I'm assuming it's not. And if that's the case, then no, absolutely not. I get a visage of me bringing something to work. My mom used to work at like an insurance call center or something, and everybody had their own, assortments of lunch or whatever. So, otherwise, I don't want to eat out of a pickling jar for my pasta.
All right. This one is a sandwich. Looks like it's got all kinds of lunch meat in there and cheese and a pickle. And it's actually very elegantly presented. And it is served on a cross section of a tree. So it's a wooden board and it is it's got bark around the outside. It's a full cross section of a small-ish, medium-sized tree. Phil, what do you think?
Hell no. God, what? No. No. That sounds disgusting. I don't know what's in that bark. Like you can't wash that. No, disgusting.
Okay. Marcus.
I'm sure it has been washed.
How do you wash a tree, Marcus, in your professional opinion? How does one wash a tree?
Carefully and by hand.
Thank you, Marcus.
No, I'm a yay. I could see it. I could see it working.
I'm a yay too. I think it looks very, very nice. Looks very elegant. How about this one? Mexican restaurant serving enchiladas on a shovel, on like the steel head part of a shovel. Marcus, what do you reckon?
Why? No.
Good question.
No. I'm a nay.
And Phil?
Of course I'm in. Come on. We got to get to the bottom of this enchilada. Man, we're all in it together. Pick up your shovels, start working, and get to work. I love it. I love it. Yes, give me a shovel and a pile of food. Friggin' man, I'm for this. This I'm in.
All right. Phil's excited about the shovel. All right, this is the last one, and this is a very interesting one. So I can only describe it to you here. It is a grilled cheese that has been hung on a hook, like they've put a hook through it,
Like it's set out to dry?
and it's hanging over a bowl of tomato soup, and the cheese is like dripping out of the bottom of the sandwich, which is again hanging on a hook. What do we think here, gentlemen? Phil, let's go to you first, because I'm looking at the look on your face.
Again, what are we doing? Are we doing laundry day and just putting up a grilled cheese while you wait? The concept escapes me. No, this is a waste of cheese residue. This is a waste of a perfectly good bowl of soup because it's laying out. It's going to get cold. Hell no. Just hold it. Hold the damn cheese. No.
Yeah, absolutely. Marcus, what do you reckon?
I mean, I don't really see the need to hook a sandwich or a melted cheese, grilled cheese.
That's because there is none. If I just sent you guys the photo, maybe we'll post it on Instagram if you guys are curious. It really is something. But there you go. It is a resounding nay at the end there. Very interesting movement. You can check it out on Reddit. And with that, let's move on. And it's time for the game. And we welcome back Marcus. He's been with us for pretty much the whole episode, which is really fun, actually. And we've got a very interesting game coming up here. But first, we've got a few questions for you, Marcus. A few bonus questions that were sent in by the fans.
All right.
So our first question, obviously we posted on our Instagram asking if people had questions for the professional chef that we had coming on the podcast. And obviously the first basic question is, we've covered a lot of this already. So a lot of the questions that we got, we kind of covered already. But how old were you when you decided that you wanted to be a chef?
I think it materialized and became like a driving thought when I was around 12, 13.
All right. So about when I met you, actually.
Yeah.
How about, Marcus, this is I can't resist asking this question. How annoying is it to cook for vegans?
I don't find it annoying. It is a challenge because I myself am not a vegan and I quite enjoy butter.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
yes.
I have no problem cooking for a vegan. I don't think it's annoying.
Can I add to that?
Okay.
I'm a very picky eater, Marcus.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a point to where when you see the no this, so like, I don't know, just going through the list and you just see all these things that somebody does not want in your food, is there a point to where you get insulted or to where you find it tedious?
It really depends on the restaurant where I'm cooking at and what type of restaurant it is. For example, the restaurant that I'm working at now, we kind of have it as part of our motto that we're happy to make the changes so that you will enjoy the food. I think it kind of becomes ridiculous if you get to the point where customer starts like picking components from different dishes, being like, oh, I want that with that. I want the pasta, but I don't want the sauce. I want you to grill the meat, but I don't want the sauce from the meat. I want the sauce from this dish. And that's when it hasn't really happened, but I think that would be a bit of a tipping point. But yeah, for the most part, I want my customers to enjoy the food. And I can make a dish that I think will be enjoyable. But if there is something in it that you don't like, for example, we have a pasta dish with mushrooms and beef, and not everyone likes mushrooms.
Yeah.
For me, it's not a big problem to take that out.
Marcus, last question here. And this one I have to ask you because it comes from a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, Alex. He wants to know, Marcus, what is the best Lord of the Rings film?
Why are you putting me on the spot? man.
He was like, I didn't sign up for this. I was ready for
I know that I can choose. No, this is not.
I was ready for a soup
question. Type of
question.
questions I wanted to answer. Yeah.
I was ready to talk about how to fillet a fish. Now you're just talking about cutting me to the edge of my heart. Which Lord of the Rings film is the best? Oh,
I will say the first one, but any of them extended editions. I don't know if I can choose. I'll say the first one just to pick something.
Fair enough. All right, Phil, explain this crazy game that you've come up with.
yes. I have come up in honor of our guest and the topic of today's episode. I've come up with a game curated around the entire idea of food, or rather, what you do to food. So, Marcus, you'll appreciate this, I certainly hope. The game is called Flip Flop or Chop Chop. And the idea is both me and David, whoever is currently hosting the game, but before the two participants, will give you a statement along with a number. Now, guarantee yourself that the number that they are stating is wrong. But it is up to us, the participants and the players of the game, to decide in what way is it wrong. So, for instance, if I were to tell both you, Marcus, and you, David, today I have eaten thus far 71 pieces of chocolate. Now, I haven't eaten 71 pieces of chocolate, but it could be, if you want to flip-flop, could be 17 is the real answer. Or if you want to chop, you will get either the number 1 or the number 7. Now, if you pick flip-flop, you get a point for that. If you pick chop and you're correct, you get a point for that. You do get, however, an extra half a point if you decide to chop and you pick the correct number. So again, if I only ate one chocolate all day and you picked chop and you picked the number 1, you get 1.5 points, as opposed to if I ate 17 pieces of chocolate and you picked flip-flop and that is the correct answer. I realize it sounds convoluted, but I do think once we get into the game, it will settle itself up. Marcus, do you feel confident understanding the game enough to play?
I'll give it a go. Why not?
That's all we can ever ask of you. Thank you so much, Marcus. All right, Marcus, however, who do you want to face off first as your opponent? No advantage goes with that.
I'll start with you, Philip.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, David, go ahead and give us the first iteration of this game.
As you can see, I have been drinking a beer throughout this episode as we've been talking. Well, I don't know if have you picked up on that? Have you both seen that? It's finished now.
Yeah.
I've seen you drinking. I had not known if it was apple juice or something else. I had decided to be naive.
I assumed it was beer.
It's never apple juice. All right. So your first question is, how many beers have I had this weekend?
Oh, this weekend?
51. Yeah, this weekend. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 51. Do you want to flip-flop or chop, as Phil will have me say? Phil, why don't we go to you first, Phil?
I'm going to chop. And I believe that the correct number is, for the entire weekend, I'll go with 5.
All right. Marcus, what do you reckon?
I'll flip-flop.
Flip-flop. Marcus thinks I've had 15 beers this weekend. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. However, unfortunately, 5 was the correct answer. So, Phil, you start out with a strong lead of 1.5 points.
Yes.
And Marcus, you fail there, but you have plenty of time to claw back. How many teams are there in the Currie Cup in South Africa, which is the domestic club rugby competition in South Africa? How many teams are there? 71? Marcus, would you like to flip-flop or chop that?
Chop, 7.
Chop. All right. And you think there are 7 teams. Be very difficult for there to be one team. Phil, what do you reckon?
Yes, that is the folly in this game. Usually, when I had to create this as well, I was like, well, I'm giving up a number, but either way, I will go with flip-flop on this particular one.
All right. Phil says 17 is the correct number, and the scores are level. Marcus, you are correct, and you get 1.5 points. There are 7 teams in the premier version of the Currie Cup in South Africa. I thought since we're talking about food and cooking today, how many milliliters of baking powder go into my famous pancake batter? 51? Phil, you first.
How many milliliters of what was the substance? Baking powder.
Baking powder.
I'm going to go with chop.
So Phil says chop.
And I'm going to go with
1 milliliter or 5?
Going to go with 5.
Okay. Marcus, what do you reckon?
I mean, I think it's the same.
You think the same, and you're both wrong, unfortunately. You should have flip-flopped. It is 15 milliliters.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
All right, so the scores remain level at 1.5 to 1.5.
And I should make a note of something. Hold on, David. I should make a note of something too. I am, due to my victory last week, I do have a possession of a skipping stone, and thus I can skip any of these, and probably should have skipped the rugby one. But Marcus, you had something you also wanted to say.
Well, I just want to comment that, it all depends on the batch size of pancakes that you're making. So you didn't really specify
that is true.
How much pancake
you should have asked for clarification.
Yeah.
I guess.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
I guess. But oh well. All right, your next question. In how many accommodations have I lived? 91. It seems like an awful lot. Marcus, we go to you first. 91. Do you want to flip-flop it or chop it? And this, I should say, includes all apartments, houses, dorms that I've lived in.
Oh, I see. Accommodations. I that was going to be my clarification once it got to me. I was like, what the hell's an accommodation?
I will chop and say 9.
All right, Phil, you next.
Wow, I really want to stay pat with him, but I know that you moved a lot. And on top of that, you've been to like dorms up the wazoo. So I would have to say that I'm going to flip-flop and go with 19 and just bite my tongue, hoping that I'm right.
No, I think you're right.
You'll be glad that you did.
Yeah.
Phil, you get a point. Yeah, you get a point there, Phil. So you are at 2.5 points. Marcus, you are at 1.5. So there we go. Last question here. How many diapers has my niece Nyla gone through today? 41? Certainly possible. But Phil, would you like to flip-flop it or chop it?
I even have the option to skip if I so chose, but I actually feel fairly confident in this game, and I will go first, so that way Marcus will have a chance here. I'm going to go with chop, and go with the number 4.
All right. Marcus, what do you reckon? Now, in order to catch up, you would have to pick something different.
Yeah, but 14 seems like
but you could go with your heart and just claw back the points for pride.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to
41. So you could flip flop for 14.
No, 14 seems too high for a
all
baby.
Right, so you go with the same number, and you are both correct. Yeah. So you are both correct. And Phil, you do win, of course. You get 4 points in the end, and Marcus, you end up with 3. Congratulations, Phil. Another win under the belt.
Yes, my belt is getting a little bit thicker these days. We love to see it, and we love it. And Marcus, a visual handshake, my friend, a worthy competition. But you can strike out on your vengeance vis-a-vis David over here, because it is now my version of flip-flop or chop. And of course, in honor of our guest, I did theme my game a little bit more towards celebrity chefs. So we start, of course, with Martha Stewart. She is notoriously known for having served some time in jail for her crime of insider trading, and she served 51 months of prison time. Now, do you want to, we'll go with you first, David. Would you like to flip-flop to 15 months? Chop to 5 months, or chop to 1 month it served in prison?
I don't think 1 month sounds very likely. And 15 months or 5 both certainly realistic. I think I'm going to go with flip-flop. Flip-flop it for me. I think it was 15.
Marcus, we go to you. How long was Martha Stewart cooking from inside the jail?
I am going to take a wild guess and chop and say 5.
He says 5. Well, you both were correct to stay away from 1 month, although it was a shorter sentence, which means that Marcus was correct at 5 months. 5 months served in jail, and 5 months, I believe it was even 2 years of house arrest to where she could not go out without an ankle bracelet. Naughty, naughty, Martha. All right, we move along to Guy Fieri. Another well-known chef, of course, for all the spiky blonde hair that he touts all the time. Known, of course, for being a Food Network star. But he was inducted into the Barbecue Hall of Fame in the year 2021. No, it's got to be a different number. But Marcus, my question to you is, do you want to flip-flop it to the year 2012? Or would you like to chop it to the year 2002 or 2001? When was he inducted into the Barbecue Hall of Fame?
I am going to flip-flop it to 12.
He's going to flip-flop it to the year 2012. Hoffman, where would you like to go with the number?
I'm wary of getting left behind here. I'm going to go with the same thing. I think 2012 sounds more likely. So I'm going to flip-flop it as well.
All right, so you both have chosen the same one. You're both correct in staying away from 2002. And you both are correct for flip-flopping. It was indeed 2012 that he was inducted into the Barbecue Hall of Fame. You know, David, the beauty of the podcast format is that we can record however, whenever, whatever we want and edit a lot into the podcast, do a lot of good editing, what we want, what we don't want. We curse word this, we take that out. We add a little razzle dazzle here. I can add a rejoin later into the week. There's a lot of flexibility. The one negative, though, David, is that sometimes tech happens. We had a major technical issue, and I think we can both say from the bottom of our hearts, we apologize to you, the listener, for our technical difficulties, because due to those technical difficulties, we lost the rest of this game that we were playing with Marcus. And because we're in the podcast format, the technical difficulties were so massive, so huge, that it is actually a new day for you and me, Hoffman.
Yep.
While we're recording this, it's a new day. We're coming back a day back after these. So Marcus, of course, he's a working chef. He's a working individual. He's not ready and available. He gave us his plenty of time for the rest of the episode.
I also think in general, it just would have been too much to ask anybody to come back on a second time, on a second night, set up the, like we have to do a little sound check. And then, we don't want it to be a huge deal. And so given that we only lost a small chunk at the end of the game, we thought we would just sort of give you guys a rundown of what happened.
Yeah, recreate it for you. I'm going to go back into my acting bag and see if I can channel Marcus and see if I can give you a facsimile of what he would dare provide you. So let's go. Gentlemen, the next chef that I would like to introduce to you guys is Wolfgang Puck. Though he is known for his high-status restaurants and chunky soup, Puck has maintained that he first wanted to become a chef at the ripe young age of 91. Of course, that age is incorrect. However, Marcus and David, would you guys care to flip-flop or chop-chop? Your options would, of course, be flip-flop to 19, chop-chop to the age 9, or chop-chop to the age 1. Marcus, we're going to start with you. Well, Philip, I would like to say that you are indeed the sexiest voice around on this podcast. Wow, Marcus, thank you so much. David's right there. Yes, I know, but I still say it in full knowledge that he is right there. Anyways, I shall get back to my answer.
I hate you. Fucking move on.
Anyways, I will now choose my selection, which of course is obviously the chop-chop answer of 9.
And I'm gonna say chop-chop as well. I think he was 9 when he decided he wanted to become a chef. So I'm going to chop, and I'm going to go with 9.
Wow. Well, you both were correct in missing and swerving away from the answer of 1. He was not a savant when he decided he wanted to make soup for the rest of his life. However, it wasn't 9. It was actually 19. He was perusing through a family friend's restaurant that the friend managed, if story holds true and weight. And it was at 19 that he knew what he wanted to do for the rest of his life. We move along to Gordon Ramsay. Of course, we mentioned him earlier with Beef Wellington with Marcus. Thank you. The rambunctious chef has certainly had his fair share of squabbles, but his parenting practices of explicitly not allowing any of his 51 children to fly first class always draws up a good parenting debate. Now, I know he gets around, perhaps, I don't know, Gordon Ramsay personally, but he does not have 51 children. However, do you gentlemen want to flip-flop to the age or to the number of 15 children? Or would you like to chop to either the number 5 or 1? Well, I will go with 5.
Now, I just want to pull back the curtain here. Marcus very confidently went with 5.
I tried to go with
confidently.
I tried to go with confidence. Let me take that again, please. Thank you.
All right, please.
5.
All right. And I, knowing that my only chance now is to really try to hope that Marcus is wrong here, I'm going to go with 1. I've seen his daughter on his like Instagram Reels posts, and she's the only daughter that I've seen. So I'm going to go with 1 semi-confidently.
The confidence prevails as 5 actually is the proper amount of children that Gordon Ramsay has. 5, it too shocks me, but 5, and thus rendering, Hoffman, your plight towards respectability and, more importantly, victory in this game moot. You can no longer win, but we will go to the final question as if it still mattered for anything other than pride or points. We now go to Remy, so famous he doesn't even need a last name, because Remy the Rat is my personal favorite chef, who coincidentally I don't know if I would eat from, but I digress. Of course, starring from Ratatouille, we actually moved to the deceased chef Gusteau, who is voiced by famed actor Brad Garrett. The role marks the 43rd role for Brad Garrett in a Pixar-specific film. Now, 43 is the wrong number here, but would you gentlemen, starting with you, David, like to flip-flop to Brad Garrett's 34th film in a Pixar film, or chop to either 4 or 3?
I am going to chop, and I'm going to say 4. I think it was 4.
I don't think it's either 34 or 4, so I will go with 3. Wow, Marcus. What a great voice you have. Thank you. I can't say enough about your voice either. Yes, Marcus. Hold on. We have to get through this podcast first. But yes, you are correct, Marcus. It is indeed 3. Brad Garrett has only been in 3 Pixar films thus far. To his credit, to his name right now, of course, Chef Gusteau, for my money, being his highlighted role. But bringing a lot to Pixar, only 3. And it is of note, I believe, we both said, David, at this point in the interview and game, that we thought that there was only about 20 or so Pixar films in the making at this point in time. Anyways, 34, we're getting there, but not quite there as of yet. This, of course, means that Marcus indeed won against you, David, cleansing his victory, making a 50-50 proposition between you and me, I winning and you losing. But Marcus did have something he wanted to plug before he left and graced us with his time and presence.
Right. So Marcus, obviously, it was unfortunate that he couldn't get his opportunity to plug. We did mention earlier in the podcast that he's working at a restaurant on the west coast of Sweden, and the city that he's working in is called Valberg. I'm not. I desperately want to say it in the way that he said it, but obviously I can't. It's a city called Varberg or Varberg. I don't know. And maybe if I do like a Swedish chef, Varberg, hula. Anyway, and he's working. This is where it gets real good. He's working at a restaurant called Fostningsterrassen. Fostningsterrassen, which means Fortress Terrace, which sounds like a fantastic name for a restaurant. And so, if you happen to find yourself in Sweden with nothing to do, then head over to Varberg, which is spelled Varberg. Find someone who speaks English and Swedish and say, I'm looking for a restaurant that is called Fortress Terrace in Swedish, and they will hopefully point you in the right direction.
Thank you, David. Very well said. The only point that
and obviously I do want to say Marcus said he had a lot of fun on the podcast, and we hope to have him back on at least for another game in the future.
Absolutely. The only thing I will clap back on you for, David, is even if you have something to do in Sweden and you're doing loads of other things, go still check out the restaurant. I love the concept.
Yeah. Marcus is a chef who's worked in Michelin star restaurants, and I don't know if this one has a Michelin star, but I know it's good. I've eaten at restaurants that Marcus has worked at in the past, and this was when he was just starting out, and the food was great, just amazing. So he's a very talented chef. Go check out that food if you can.
With that win, I get one win closer to David at a sterling record of 12-18, sarcasm abound, with 79 answers correct. And of course, David, with that loss, drops to 13-19 and only 67 answers correct. I'm catching up.
13-17, surely. I was 13-16 last week.
God damn it. Hold on.
You don't need to cut this out. Why don't we just let the public know that you got it wrong?
It's a clerical error. I'm not an accountant. I'm a damn podcaster. This, of course, is the segment That Slaps, the part of the week where we each get to choose and select some part of cinema, some part of entertainment, some part of really anything that really jives us to move along and say, you know what? That slaps. So, David, what would you like to say slaps this week?
There aren't really any songs that jump out at me this week, and I haven't started any new TV shows, so it ain't going to be anything like that. But I did go to the movies this week to watch 007 No Time to Die. And I will say that of the Daniel Craig 007 movies, Casino Royale remains my favorite. Skyfall is great, but No Time to Die was also great. I think it's a good Bond movie, and it definitely brings back. Obviously, Daniel Craig's Bond movies are very gritty and serious and dark compared to the older Bond movies that are more campy and a bit out there. But this one has elements of a classic Bond movie as well. So I respect that. I respect how it married the two worlds. And I think it's a wonderful movie. I just regret how little Ana de Armas was in it. It's just shameful.
It's a crime.
Right? But
it's a crime.
Overall, that slaps.
Just as a quick aside, what I didn't realize, because I had not been in the movies quite in some time. Last time you mentioned your descent with Dune, I did not realize that you, being where you are in Europe, you get access to films a whole hell of a lot sooner than we do over here in America.
What are you talking about?
Cheater. We don't have Dune yet. It's not released. 007
really?
is not 007's not released until October 15th or something.
Really? Oh, interesting. Yeah. But I don't think it's always like that. I think that's it. Sometimes it's earlier, sometimes it's a little later, sometimes it's around the same time. That's it. But that is interesting. I didn't realize that we had Dune 2 weeks before you, or.
Oh yeah, I think 3, because we still don't have it yet, and I think we're coming up this week.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's very interesting. Maybe it's because they do the premiere and then they start doing the press tours. Like they go on to Tonight Show and The Late Show and all that stuff. Whereas in Europe, they just sort of once they've done the premiere in the US, they're like, okay, just release it in Europe.
Sure. But that was something interesting that I had not ever found until you start to tell me these movies. And I'm like, man, that makes sense, because he's just ahead of us. Anyways, I'm sorry.
I will say, when it comes down to Marvel movies, it won't be like that, I don't think. Once they're released, to avoid spoilers, they're probably just going to release them all at the same time around the world, pretty much.
Dang it, we keep moving this conversation along, but in the same direction.
I know, but it's so interesting. It's so interesting.
It is. Do you
Especially
guys have
for
Venom?
our multinational audience.
Right. Do you have Venom yet? You guys have Venom?
Not yet. Well, it's coming out in from today. It's now Monday, October 4th.
Uh-huh.
It is coming out in a few days, in 3 days or something. I think it's this weekend. It hits the IMAX theaters.
So Venom, Let There Be Carnage, we got before you guys, but Dune and
you have it already?
Oh yeah. I've already seen it.
Okay. So there you go.
I saw it this past week. It does not make my that slaps. It just have other things that I'd rather slap.
Fair enough.
And of course, you know,
I'd rather have slap you.
Absolutely. And you realize, and I'm sure the audience by now knows, that I love a good theme. So staying on theme, staying on brand for the episode, of course, with chefery and cooking and cutlery, I'm going to bring you my favorite song from David Cook, Light On. Enjoy it. It adds to the playlist. That slaps. We have a couple thank yous to get to before we finally put this elongated and troublesome podcast to a rest. Of course, we want to thank Tara Amstead for her wonderful graphical design work and Josh Hans for some of the wonderful rejoins that we have coming in and out of some of the breaks that you yourself know. Both of you, Josh Hans and Tara, thank you so much for all your contributions to the podcast.
Yes, and thank you to Cass and Crossline for our intro and outro music, and to Jake Corlang for our That Slaps bassline. As always, thank you both. Well, thank you all. We love you, and we appreciate you.
And we'd also like to thank you, the listener, for listening, subscribing, hopefully, and keeping up with us and all the episodes from here on out. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate you giving us your time. And we appreciate your questions, too, whenever we have fun moments like this where we can interview somebody and you can have your voice input. So we thank you, thank you, thank you.
A grizzly bear is a lot like a woman. If you don't feed it, it might kill you.